All right, there we go. Good morning, Israel. It's the 26th of October, very early in the morning, 4:22 a.m. Look, we probably have a lot to talk about. I'm liable to go long. That's because we've got a 2-week notice. You got a 2-week head start. It's not the election that you have to worry about much. It's the fact that we're running out of diesel fuel. They purposely orchestrated this because they're going to take us down. They've got us lulled to sleep really well. And the main thing is you thinking that you're in charge. You're thinking you can change their fate. You can stop this thing if you just wait to the election. Oh, hell no. They're going to unleash holy hell upon you about the time of the election. And that is because once there's no more truckers running, because there's no more diesel fuel, then there in short order will be no more gasoline. Everything will be shutting down. And then there will be no more food on the shelves. It'll be gone almost instantly. It used to be that we had a 3-day food supply. That was a long time ago. Now we're down to maybe a day and a half food supply in the grocery stores. So you better get water, and I'm not talking bottled water. Fill your bathtub up. Because there's not going to, there could be running water. Don't get me wrong. But some places it might be dependent upon electricity, and there's a good chance there won't be any electricity either. Because once this place starts coming apart, they've let so many terrorists into the nation. Biden has sponsored so many of them here, and we've been bringing in the enemy for decades, not just this administration. At the end of the Vietnam War, we brought the enemy over. we brought the Viet Cong over here, and we settled them up and down the Mississippi River. And then at the end of the Iraq War, George Bush Jr., that son of a bitch in Texas, he brought over the Iraqi Republican Guard. 5,000 troops, followed by an additional 5,000 troops as well. I met 2 of those son of a bitches in Yuma on Interstate 8. They told me about themselves that they were jihad. Me and my girlfriend had our 357s in a brown paper bag at the back of the car. We were standing talking, and I really wanted to pull my gun out and blow these bastards away because I knew what they were about. They said they were waiting to be activated. Could take years. One was tall. He spoke English pretty good. The other one was short. He listened and kept his mouth shut. As far as I could tell, he was probably the officer of the 2. Look, there's no way out of this. The trap is set. They're about to spring it. Biden has been the perfect guy because you get to argue about him. You get to talk about him. You get to be distracted by the show he puts on or the show they put on trying to make us, the guy is demented. Well, he's not merely demented, but you have to realize that he was put into office in a different way. Even the ceremony was not at the right time. He wasn't transported on Air Force One. There's all kinds of things. The psyop that they pulled was tremendous. And at this point, I don't trust our own military. I'm sorry, I don't trust our own military. Why? Look at who's in charge of it. General Milley, who said if we were going to launch an attack on the Chinese, he would call them up and warn them. Wow. What the hell is he doing up there? I feel like this thing's been sabotaged from top to bottom, head to foot, the whole damn thing. We do not have a republic. We sure as hell don't have a democracy. And this news media and this high-tech stuff, they're controlling our communications. They're controlling everything. They're controlling our speech. I cannot get uploaded on my other channel because I spoke the truth about something. Actually, I did it twice. I got 2 strikes. I tried to put my warning up on the other channel. It's not happening. So this is the only channel I have handy, is Awakening Israel. And if you're tuning in for the first damn time, well, sorry, there's plenty of video up there. It turns out that half of my videos were not uploaded properly on this channel. So there's a lot missing, and I don't know what it was. I think I might be getting a helpmate. I don't know. But as I've always said, if God wanted me to have a wife, He'd issued me one. Just like if the United States Army wanted me to have a wife, they'd issued me one. Of course, I never joined it. But then again, I really am what's going on for the Army today. I've been fighting for this for all of my life. Been trying to sort it out since I was a little boy. Since I was about, well, let me see here, 5 years old. And I remember when I was up to 11 years old, man, was I naive. Am I slow? I do understand the big picture. And if you tuned into this channel, the odds are you do too already. Please share this video with the people that don't understand what's going on. Basically, the United States of America was foretold in the Bible. If you look in the book of Genesis towards the end, you'll see Israel. The man is passing away. His boys are around him. His family is around him. He's basically on his deathbed. And there's two events in the back of the book at the end of Genesis. One of those, he's talking about the symbols of the boys and the tribes, their tribes that they were going to have. And he talks about them and basically gives you their heraldry. So you can recognize which of the Israelite boys the tribe descended from. So you can track them through history and you can identify with them. You can look at the symbol. And by the way, the Irish kind of have it made because you got that red hand on it. You all come from Judah, more specifically from Zerah, one of the two twins, the one who put his hand out of the womb first, and then his brother broke the breach. His brother Pharez, which means a break in the breach, came out. And of course, we have the prophecy of Ezekiel, and he basically documents the fact that the big eagle, he's talking about Jeremiah, who definitely was his superior, took the tender twig, which is in female, plucked it from the top of the cedar tree and transplanted it. He took it to Ireland, the northern shores of Ireland, whereupon they disembarked. And as a result, Tia Tamir, the crown princess, the successor to the throne of David at that point, because the boys had all been killed in front of their father's eyes. I think that was Hezekiah, if I'm not mistaken. There's so many of them. A couple of them I get confused between. And plus they got renamed. The enemy would give the kings different names when they became their vassals and were representing them. And they put different people in power towards the end. So Tia Tamir met, I say, Echodad. I mean, that's the closest I can come to pronouncing that name. It's got so many vowels in it. But who basically was the chief of the clan of Zerah. Zerah means seed. And she married him, and that's when the high branch became low and the low branch became high. It's in the Bible. Go look it up. It's in the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel's talking about the great eagle. He's talking about Jeremiah. And by the way, Jeremiah didn't stop his travels in Ireland. He went to the wilderness, to North America, right here where you and I are now. We were foretold as the great nation. Manasseh would become a great nation, the great nation. So we've got the blessing of the population over here. And our older brother Ephraim became Great Britain, a company of nations. All right. And then, but Jeremiah required them to clean up Ireland before he would allow the crown princess to marry their chieftain up there. And he chased the snakes out of Ireland. You've heard that myth, I'm sure, that story. Well, they brought over the pillow stone, and the pillow stone from there went to Scotland, and then from Scotland it went to England, And now it's gone back from England up to Scotland again. And it will be used in the next ceremony. By the way, that's not a man, Charles is not a line in the line of David whatsoever. His mother was not on the throne legitimately. Diana Spencer, Princess Diana Spencer, had more proper claim to that throne than this previous queen had. But that's a whole nother story. The main thing is there's a great love story in the Bible. You ladies ought to read it. You men ought to become familiar with it. It's in there. It's wonderful. We're headed for some real rough times. They've done all of this at one time, and in case you're wondering who's doing it, it is the bankers. The bankers, the money changers in the temple, were identified as the enemy. They were whipped, tables overturned, they were beat, and within a week, they made sure that the guy who did the whipping was crucified. That's kind of how Yeshua set it off. You might not think he did, but he was in total charge and control. His father Yahweh was telling him what to do. So you can bet that when he formed that whip out of the cords, that he meant it. And when he snapped that son of a bitch around, you can bet he meant it. And you can bet he had a little bit of divine power going on when that happened. You can bet there were angels in the area, in the immediate area. Oh, in case you're wondering, all this space around here, you and I think there's nothing there. There's stuff there. Okay, there's other dimensions for sure. Other beings, other energies. So, the life that you think you have and the life that I think I have has limitations to it. We're limited just to what we can see, but there's a lot more going on around us. So just realize that there's a lot more to it that's not seen. I need you to take care of yourselves. I need you to get everything in order. Certainly go to this election. It's not that it's possibly over. They'll pull the plug right afterwards unless you reelect all of these Democrats and Pelosi stays in power. And by the way, she needs to be charged for her irresponsibility, for her dereliction of duty, and for insurrection against this country, because it was her order that got Ashley Babbitt executed. So she needs to be brought to justice. She needs to be charged with the murder of Ashley Babbitt. Oh, she didn't pull the trigger. She just gave the order. And from what I understand, that jackass who murdered her acknowledged her order on the radio and let her know that he was going to take care of business. Pelosi said somebody had to be sacrificed. There had to be some bloodshed. And that's how you get your Ashley Babbitt murder. It is unsolved. They acquitted that guy, or they didn't charge him. I don't think they've ever tried him. I think he can still be tried for murder. But I think he's just a hired gun. I think the real murderer, the real executioner, is the Wicked Witch of the West. Yeah, Nancy. I need you to understand, truth is going to be coming to light. But as far as truth to power, I don't know if that's going to happen. It comes down to you. You have to actually figure things out. The public has to actually awake for a change. You can't just remain asleep. You have to understand that the vast majority of you out there are nothing, you're worse than dead weight. We can't even lug you around. You actually fight against us when we tell you the truth. You give us grief. I'm tired of it. I don't really want to help you anymore. I mean, you folks have done a lot of damage to me and to other people. I don't trust you. I don't trust you to be around me. I think you're dangerous to me. I think, unfortunately, well, there's things I can't talk about. I'm not going to risk any more strikes. You're probably going to need me a lot more in these next 2 weeks and the 2 weeks following that. And I just can't afford to have this channel be taken off air, taken down. I don't know if when they take one down, they take the other, or what happens. They make it up as they go, far as I can tell. And I don't know who's really running that show. If it's that guy in India who's so famous and so revered over there, then, man, with these corporate entities, you really have a hard time chasing down the responsibility. The whole purpose of corporations is to shuck responsibility. Our founders would never allow corporations because they knew that in order to be free men, you had to be responsible. In order to be responsible, your assets could not be sheltered and hidden and protected. Everything had to be available, because if you made a mistake, or worse yet, you purposely harmed somebody, then everything you had was available for things to be made right. We're not going to like this, but I think that slavery was an okay thing, because if a man had no way to repay somebody for the damages they had done to them other than to become an indentured servant, become a slave for a period of time, which was limited to 7 years in the Old Testament. You couldn't enslave a fellow Israelite beyond that. You had to free them. There were limitations to it. You treated your slaves well. They were an investment, but more than that, they were your responsibility. And you can bet they were like family. And very often, a slave would inherit his master's estate. I'm tired of the racism in this nation. We really need to get rid of it. And the best way to get rid of it is to eliminate all of those feel-good laws, to alleviate white guilt. And by the way, the first slave owner in the country was not a white guy. It was a black man named Johnson. And his slave was a white man. Yeah. He had, apparently, the slave had run away so many times that when Mr. Johnson showed up before the judge with his white indentured servant, the judge decided to make him a slave. And so it was a court decree that started slavery in the country. A very errant judge decided to set a precedent. And so you blacks need to swallow that and stomach that. You also need to realize that it wasn't the average white guy that enslaved you. It was a special group of chosen ones who enslaved you. Yeah. Come on, folks, you're not that thick. You know what I'm talking about. Look, there's several ways we can save this nation. We could reinvent the wheel. No. We just have to restore the way our founders gave it to us. And by the way, part of that means there's no corporations. Corporations aren't allowed to exist inside of America. Corporations aren't allowed to do business with citizens, landed citizens. Not at all. They wouldn't allow corporations. I don't think corporations were allowed until that I just still think he was a bad president. I could be wrong about him, but I think Abraham Lincoln was not a good guy. And I think they try to tell that to us on our coins, because on all other coinage, all of our other presidents, they featured the right side of the face. At least that's what I noticed. Except on Lincoln, they put the left side of the face. And the left side in Italian, the left is known as sinistra. Sinister. And the guy was a liar. He overwrote the original 13th Amendment because it made it illegal for him to hold office of the presidency. Actually, it stripped him of any and all citizenship in these states. And that's what you've got to return to. I don't think you have a choice. It is a strategic intervention. It is a structural foundation. It is the law of the land. So once you have that law in place and you knock out the rest of the other amendments, it helps a lot. But we need to take several things a step further. For one, we shouldn't be paying the senators. No paying benefits from the federal government to a senator representing a state government, because that's what the senators do. They represent their state governments. Until the state governments have representation, there is no damn republic. It's gone. And I say, let's go back to senators being elected from among their state's legislators. They argue and fight and vote and select two from among themselves to be senators at the federal level. I think we go, and by the way, that means they can recall them. They can fire them in an instant. If their senator does not vote the way the state wanted them to vote, they're subject to instant recall. And then they can finish the seat to which they had been elected in the state legislature. Okay? I think we need to take it a step further. I think they need to get paid by their state governments. Maybe the governor should sign that check too. The treasurer should sign it. Maybe the two should sign that check so that the senator knows who they're beholding to. No more of the super congressman stuff where you have them elected directly by the people. Professional leeches, professional politicians. In your Congress, there was no pay and there were no benefits for Congress. Oh, I think we keep the lights on in the office for them. Sure. We give them places they can meet. And I think that back then they gave them a per diem. Only we don't give them a big per diem. We just give them a little stipend to help defray the cost of room and board, lodging, while serving the nation in a volunteer capacity. Voluntary, not as a professional politician. They were supposed to be successful businessmen. They were supposed to know how to manage money. They were supposed to have been able have created a business, ran a business. Thereby, they would be shrewd enough, smart enough to run the country and control the purse strings properly. And they also represented a specific number of people. And when that number of people exceeded the threshold, then there was another congressman. And you didn't have a war unless the Congress declared it. And the Congress had to balance the budget. And this money, don't argue about this money anymore. There is no money. It's all been stolen. You and I have been robbed. Gold and silver coins are the currency by the Constitution. And this fake money that you let the Rothschilds bring in here, they've used it to destroy all of our institutions, to take it over, to buy it all off. There's a CIA asset, a hitman for the government, probably every mile at this point. Used to be every mile and a half was the old guidance. So if they needed to have somebody killed, within a mile and a half they had their hitmen. And by the way, I'm going to take a wild guess. The average CIA agent kills 70 men and women while he's at work. Where do I get that number from? The CIA agent who murdered Marilyn Monroe upon orders confessed on his deathbed he had killed more than 70 people in the course of his duties as a CIA agent. And by the way, every CIA operative is issued, the woman that I was talking to worked for the ATF, so she didn't know what the hell she was talking about. I think all my interactions with the ATF, they generally don't know what they're talking about. And the one guy who did know what he's talking about didn't want to help me in the fraud that had been committed against me. The guy did send me the money back, but it was only after I told him, man. I talked to the ATF about it. Anyway, she said a Class 7 license. I don't know what a Class 7 license is. I've never heard of it, but I'll tell you this. What she was referring to was every one of them was issued a silencer, a suppressor. Now, why do you need a silencer, suppressor, if your duties are outside of the nation? No, their duties are really inside the nation. They lied to us about that. The FBI does a lot of stuff outside the nation. The FBI is just horrible. And so you need to understand you don't have a Second Amendment. The most important part about the Second Amendment was not the right to keep and bear arms, but to actually have a militia, and you don't have that right now. I tried to get a gubernatorial candidate to adopt a platform. I liked her quite a bit. I thought she'd be a good governor. And I told her, you come forward with one speech and give it on the 4th of July. And then stop advertising. You won't need to pay for any advertising. Because you'll be just you'll be trumping your competition. And I told her, you take a stand and you call for the creation of the first Arizona state militia. She decided she wanted to go with a ranger outfit instead of a militia because the militia has such a bad name. But the militia is good. The militia consists of the common man. And when you have a militia, you don't have to have a police force because you've got the militia. And when the militia calls, the men respond. And when they don't know what to do, they can appeal to their superiors, and they can appeal up from that because all of the militia members are under authority. They're not wild people, loose cannons doing things on their own. They know right from wrong, and if they have a problem discerning it, they can always turn to consult with their brothers in the militia. And it was the militia that defended us against the British. It was the militia that won that Revolutionary War. And the militia doesn't cost you a cent. And I told her, you give the call, you'll have men coming from different parts of the country. She didn't want to do it because she said there would be bloodshed. And I think she was right. There would be some bloodshed. I don't think it would be much. Because the moment the federal government started shedding people's blood, the people would really rise up. And you don't even have to pay for their doggone ammunition. They'll bring it themselves. They'll bring their own arms. If there was any, by the way, the early gun laws where you were required as a free man, as an able-bodied man, you were required to be a member of the militia. Well, I'm certain there were religious exemptions for the Quakers and the Amish, because those guys won't fight. They won't even defend themselves. But the fact is, you had to have a long arm and a pistol. You had to have a rifle, a pistol, and you had to have a short sword. Plus, you had to have at least 200 rounds of ball and an ample supply of powder. Those were the requirements. That was the law. If I was president, I'd be telling these guys, okay, you're 20 years of age. We have this training for you, and you get to have fun. We're going to issue you your own battle rifle, and it will be yours. You will take it home with you, and you will maintain that battle rifle. And I think I'd say every 4th of July, we're going to be passing out the ammunition, and you can take your selectable fire, your tri-burst, your full auto. You can take it out there and have a blast. Got to keep you guys in shape. Shooting is a perishable skill. I know. I don't do so well at it anymore. And you ladies out there, every time I take you out to show you how to shoot, you outshoot me with my own handguns. It's embarrassing. I've gotten rid of more than one gun because I couldn't shoot it as well as the ladies could. But I realized it wasn't me not getting along with the gun. It's that you have better hand-eye coordination. And that's all there is to it. If you want to be a free people, you have to be a responsible people. which means you do not hide your assets behind corporations, limited liability companies, or any of that. Our founders would never allow a corporation to exist inside the country or to do business with anybody in the country because we had dealt with corporations and we knew how bad the East India Corporation was, for one. There were a couple of big corporations authorized by the Crown, and of course all of these corporations are underneath the Pope, canon law, underneath Rome. I've got a half hour, that's plenty. The main thing is you need to realize that you don't have a choice. You are going to have to defend yourself. That's what it's going to take to wake your lazy ass, dumb ass up. And more of you are going to have to die before you bear arms. And arms can be anything, even a damn baseball bat. Before you bear arms and actually start to administer justice properly. There's nothing wrong with defending yourself. There is such a thing as justifiable homicide. And we need to practice that once again. If a man discovers his wife having an affair with another man, it used to be that if on the spot, in his anguish and his rage and his confusion, he dispatched either of the two, even both of them, it was considered reasonable. He wasn't able to reason very properly at the moment, perhaps. Perhaps it could have been avoided. But perhaps it was the best and most fitting thing to be done. Certainly, if an adult is doing your children, don't you think you ought to be defending your child? We've got a lot of cases in the country where men have killed others who have done horrible things, especially molested a man's children. I don't think the man who does that is going to go off half-cocked and become a murderer. Oh, I imagine it'll happen. There'll be a case of that, probably for sure. Just, there's always an exception. But in general, the guy is not going to like doing it. He's not going to want to do it. He won't need to do it again because the perpetrator will be gone. There'll be no more motivation. Like that fellow in the airport. Waited till the guy come walking by, shot him right in the head. Hit him square. Killed him in front of the camera. Or how about that fellow whose daughter was prostituted by her boyfriend? And she committed suicide because of what he turned her into. That father hunted him down, made him suffer, and killed him. Now he's up. He's in the pokey now. He's up for trial on it. My God, I think the man's been through enough. I think you not only not turn him into a felon whatsoever, I think he ought to get a medal. And will that encourage other fathers to do the same thing? So be it. So what? You as a society failed to protect his daughter, and you're going to allow the perpetrator to get away with it and keep on doing the crimes. What's wrong with you? Don't you realize it's a duty? Read the Bible. You'll see there are duties in there, and they're pretty bad. You're not going to want to do all the killing that's required that the Bible dictates. In some ways, that's a mistake. In other ways, I don't know what to tell you. I don't want to go killing anybody. But who knows? The way things are going to unfold in the next month, a lot of us may have had to do that. Let's pray and hope that's not the case. Can this nation be recovered? Yes, but not with the state governments that are in place. Patricia Wheat should have been a congresswoman. She ran, she did not make it. And she pointed out properly that these governments that we have at the state level are not proper governments. They're not organic governments the way it was intended. And so we need to establish those. We don't have proper courts the way they are intended. We have these corporations set up, corporate courts designed to make a profit. They're not common law courts. There's not much justice in them. There's a lot of process, and it's almost all undue process. When we were founded as a nation, we were the largest consumers of legal textbooks in the world. We bought and read legal textbooks, and we knew the law so well that we didn't need an attorney. We went in and represented ourselves, and we won. But it took us studying. It took us sitting on our arses and reading the books to be able to be prepared to know how to represent ourselves and avoid these traps that these legal assholes were setting for us. And the judges have not been very helpful on that. A lot of these judges need to be removed. I think the entire Supreme Court is pretty bad at this point. They're all guilty of bad behavior, every one of them. There might be 1, 2, perhaps 3 that might be worth keeping on the court. But all these others, I don't think so. I think anybody who takes money from the Chi-Coms and is a government employee needs to be fired. Even the one that I like that's on the court. There's a couple of them that are pretty decent. John Roberts should have been gone a long time ago when he wrote that horrible judgment decision on Obamacare. The Affordable Care Act, which made care unaffordable. That horrible thing they foisted off on us, which is one of the planks of the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. It should never have become the law of the land. And when he wrote that opinion, he said in there that they don't have the capacity to judge. So if the boy is going to admit that he can't do the job, what's he doing on the bench? Should he even have the ability to practice law anywhere? If you return to real constitutional currency, and if you do business with real gold and real silver and not even the damn banknotes, because that's how all this fraud started. They slowly changed the text on the banknotes. They made certain words disappear. So they changed the instruments over a long period of time. And in case you're wondering, your boy Hamilton was the Rothschild agent. His real name was Louis. He was a man of mixed lineage. He kept trying to talk George Washington into becoming king. Hamilton worshipped Washington. And I know that we credit Hamilton with starting our business institutions and all of that, but actually he didn't do it. Mr. Rothschild did it for us, quietly behind Mr. Hamilton, telling the young Mr. Hamilton what to do. Aaron Burr killed Mr. Hamilton. I haven't studied that. Maybe there was good cause for it. Certainly there were some things wrong with the gentleman since he got himself embroiled in a duel. You need to realize that they manipulate the hell out of us. They pull psychological operations all the time. They do double speak upon you. They use the dual meanings, multiplicitous meanings of words in order to bamboozle you and to defraud you and me. And at this point, we're all victims of their crimes. And there's no statute of limitations on taxes, okay. There's no statute of limitations upon murder, and no statute of limitations upon fraud. It's time to declare the frauds and to free ourselves up of it. Yes, the systems have to implode to a very large extent, but it's time America turned upon itself, and reflected upon things, and realized what the truth is. The truth is you are owned, and a group has entered the country for the purposes of taking over power. They run us today. They control us. It is a small group, a minority of chosen ones. They are not Abraham's children. They're not Israel's children. They don't know much about Moses either. Read the Bible. It'll open your mind up. It'll open your soul up to good stuff. All of our institutions have been corrupted. Everything has been convoluted. The professions have all been turned against the laity. Abraham Lincoln said that. The boy was actually good for a thing or two. He may actually have taken the only course that he could have taken because of the manipulation of the Rothschilds, the bankers of Europe, as they were trying to take our nation apart and divide the spoils. And our big brother, our older brother in Russia, the Tsar, was wise and liked us and recognized the danger we were in better than we did ourselves. And he sent his ambassadors to help us and to guide us, and he offered his help, and he did help us. He brought his navy over here. He stationed it in New York and in San Francisco. Did it in secrecy. He knew about the danger of the Rothschilds. He knew what was going on behind the scenes. And as a result, we stayed together as a nation. And as a result, we ended up with Alaska under the guise of leasing it for 100 years. Lincoln repaid the Tsar the $7 million that it cost him to run his navy. The entire transaction was $7.2 million. The $0.2 million, the $200,000 went to bribe the congressman, I'm pretty sure. We called it Seward's Folly. We still have some little settlements of Russians up there that isolate from the rest of us. They dress quaintly, they come into town, mostly in the Homer area, and they live the old ways. You know, Alaska can be the peacemaker. Oh, and by the way, we've got one well in Alaska that would fill that pipeline up for the next 1,500 years. And so the pipeline's running at marginal levels, just barely enough to keep it going. But you know, if we drilled one well, we could fill that pipeline up for 1,500 years. And indeed, that oil would not come to the States because the refinery that's been engineered to refine that oil is over in Asia. But that would take a lot of pressure off the world right now to bring that much oil to market. I guess if I was going to take a guess, that would be approximately 16% of our nation's oil that we need to use. We actually don't use as much as we used to because some things are more efficient. We do need to get rid of this ethanol because without ethanol, there's more energy in the fuel. You get better mileage per gallon, less emissions per mile, better for the engines. But as I said, we're occupied illegally by a foreign power, by an enemy. They've taken over us. And then if you return to normal levels of sulfur, which is a lubricant and helps diesel engines last longer and gives you better mileage, if you return to sulfur in the fuel, don't worry, you don't get sulfuric acid rain. That was a hoax. It was designed to cover up the fact that the GMC bought bad paint primer, and the finishes weren't coming off because of acid rain. It was because they were cheap bastards and used inferior primer. And in case you're wondering, the cost of farming went up when you deprived the farmer of the sulfur in the rain. There was enough sulfur in the rain. We didn't have to put sulfur on the crops. Now you have to put sulfur on the field. And just imagine if the mileage, the efficiency of those engines was back up where they were. Imagine they were getting twice as many miles to the gallon. Oh, and there's other inventions which we're not allowed to bring to market because our keepers, the people that illegally occupy us, want to keep us hobbled as much as possible. And there's a new head for a diesel engine. Works a lot like a Bunsen burner. It's so clean you don't need any pollution controls on the engine. And you get like 20 times the efficiency. Wow. We can't bring that to market. And I guess you can put such heads on the old engines that already exist. But they stop us every step of the way. And the guy that invented the water burning car, I want to call him Stanley. I think that's what his name was. They murdered him. They poisoned him. Yeah. People in our own government were assigned to do that. I bet it was CIA. Just like CIA killed Marilyn Monroe. Well, she was totally under their control anyway. She was their mind control sex slave. Yes, that's a reality. That's what goes on in this country to a large extent. But they've got us as a whole deteriorated. And of course, the way things are going, our culture is basically slated for disappearance, for extermination. I don't like using that word, but extinction, I guess, is a better word. So if you're listening to my channel, do give me a like. Share this with other people. Let them know that the Bible is not about a guy on the hillside picking flowers who doesn't get angry, who never would do that. What keeps coming to my mind is the earth groans for her saviors. These people that illegally occupy the United States of America and control the world today in their dominance in all of the governments, not just Western civilization, but Eastern as well. They're hurting the earth. They're destroying the earth. They're doing things to harm the earth. And stop saying nobody would ever do that. Stop saying that doesn't make sense. Why would they do that, Dr. Kent? Look, there's some questions we don't want to even know the answers to. We just want to stop them. We have to stop them. It's better that we're the ones that stop them than later on. So do me a favor, get this out. I need to awaken more Israelites. That's my job. It's my duty. This is a call to arms. And the most important thing is a sharp mind, able to understand things, to know right from wrong, and to have the capacity, the ability to do right. I struggle too. And when I was 5 years old, the world did not make any sense to me. And my mother told me over and over, stop trying to save the world. Sounds like a messianic complex. For a 5-year-old? No, I wasn't trying to save the world. Y'all were crazy. It didn't make sense to me when I was a little boy. If we won the war, then why were things the way they were at the time? That's because we didn't win the war. It was a giant psychological operation. And the people who declared that war at the outset were the victors. And in case you're wondering, that chosen group of people that declared war on Germany did it on a specific day, the traditional day of the crucifixion. Yeah, they don't do anything without a lot of meaning to it. And in this case, it was in the month of March 1933 when they declared war against Germany. And Germany was a fine country. It was a noble country. Don't believe the myths. Don't believe the hogwash you've been told. Most of those German officers, including Joseph Mengele, came to the United States of America. He spent most of his life in Phoenix. Yes, they gave him a new identity. Mr. Green something or other. And he continued his practices here upon our children. We have an eyewitness to that. It's one of these famous Mormon singers. I don't remember her name. She looks average today. There's nothing particularly attractive about her. As a matter of fact, it's very uncomfortable to be around her when she tells her story because you'll squirm in your seat going, is this real? I mean, isn't she just making this up? How could this be? Well, she gave her testimony. It's out there. It's available for the world. And yet we allow this slavery to continue upon the earth. Yes, we do. $1,400, I think. Wasn't that the stimulus check amount? And that was symbolic. Because guess what? I think that's what a baby goes for on the open market. On this horrible, ugly black market they have going. I think they sell those children for $1,400. So they made sure to give you and me a stimulus check that reflected that. Now, don't get me wrong. You know, that's a very wicked, evil ideation, thought. It's horrible. But I want to tell you, especially you ladies out there, that a real economic stimulus is childbearing. Nothing motivates a man more than his own children. Nothing is more economically stimulating than having children. It's the most important thing on the face of the earth. And right now they're doing their best to eliminate as many people as possible. The numbers that are bannered around are just wild. I'm not going to talk about it here because I might slip up and say something I'm not allowed to say. This is not America. We do not have the First Amendment. We do not have free speech rights. We're totally controlled. You cannot put your voice up and out there. The only people who are syndicated, with the exception of maybe one, Dan Bongino, he might be the only one that's not controlled opposition. But he was Secret Service, so I don't really fully trust him either. But these other guys that pretend they're conservatives, they're all controlled by the biggest publisher in the world, that being our own very CIA. They're all controlled. They give some of them specific hit jobs, like to mock the birthers, those who wanted to know where Obama was born. I think I can mention that. And then another one was to mock the truthers about 9/11. So here's your truth about 9/11. A crime occurred. It was never investigated. Moreover, it was covered up. That's all we have to agree upon. A crime occurred. It's never been investigated. There's been a cover-up. What are you going to do about it? The Twin Towers were representative of the twin pillars at the temple. What were the names of those? They had names for those pillars. I should remember them. I think one of those was named after the man that married the Moabitess, as the old guys used to say when I was a youngster. Ruth. Who was it that married Ruth? I think one of those pillars was named after him. He did his duty. It's kind of a strange book. I don't think I fully understand it. I can't wait till Yahshua returns. I want to be able to understand that book. Yeah, I'm not too old to learn new things. But I'm too old to sit on my hands and just watch all this go by without saying a word. I've been fighting for this nation for quite a while. I didn't want to go in the army, the military. I didn't want to move about. I hated that life. Hell, I graduated from what was my 13th school. That's how much the family moved. I hated it. I didn't like it. Man, I couldn't wait to just hang out with the same kids back in the hometown. They had it made. They had yards and gardens, and we played outside. We swam in the river. We had a lot of freedom. We had a lot of guidelines. Any adult could pull rank on you and consecrate you on the spot. And when you got home, your parents knew all about it. I swear it was a giant conspiracy. They were all in on it against us kids. And whatever the stranger did to us, our parents did more to us. And the stranger was thanked. Today, parents don't think right. They're not very mature. They're not very adult. Well, folks, we got a couple of weeks where the energy is going to flow freely. I'm feeling better. Thanks for the prayers out there. I am asking for prayer. I want to sell Bibles. I'm asking for prayer. I would like to improve my digs a little bit. I've got something in mind. I'm a hopeless romantic, and I think in ways that I think would make even you women blush, I guess, because it's like, he's that sensitive. He's that, wow. Yeah, well, you ladies don't understand men very well. One of those is that we can fall in love at first sight, and you don't trust that. You don't believe it. Well, you're not a man, so how would you know? But if you want to understand, then read the Bible. Yahweh fell in love with Israel at first sight. Yeah. That's one of the characteristics of a man, not of a woman. That's why you don't understand it. God created us quite differently. You are given extra capacities, extra parts of your soul even, extra parts of your electromagnetic force field that you're inside of, by the way. It's around you. It extends from your body. Different souls have different strengths. Different people have different auric strengths. And you have a different chemistry too. It requires more balancing. It requires more sheltering. It requires more care. It is quite a crown that you wear. And it's a constant balancing act. It's not easy. But you were given this extra capacity for the purposes of motherhood. And when you use it for womanly ends to manipulate, you drive yourselves nuts. Yeah. That's when you need us. You need us to be stayed like stumps in the ground, around which you can dance, around which you can be yourselves and count upon us and know that we're there, anchoring you down, sheltering you, protecting you. That's one of the advantages of the Old English language in using the pronoun he, the masculine pronoun, so readily, so frequently. Why? Because it hid your identity. It hid the fact that there was a woman. It protected the woman. Anyway, I've gone long here. Get your act together. We got 2 weeks. Say some prayers for me. Sell Bibles. I'd like to get another rig. I'd like to get this rig fixed up. I'd like to get things in order so that I can make a run for the hills. I think I got a place to go. I think that it may take that, because we don't know exactly what's coming. And by the way, the big event, it's going to take about a 50-year period. We're 8 years into it, maybe 10 years into it. So there's another 40 years minimum, maybe 50 years to get to the other side of it. I don't plan on seeing that. I could. I mean, the Bible says a man's lifespan would be limited to 120 years. That puts me right there. But that's when things will be stabilized. That's after the big event. And when the big event happens, these people that run the planet right now, they know what's coming. They've survived it before. They've dug in. They're digging in. They're trying to reduce us so they won't have as much competition on the other side. They might be trying to reduce us because it might be true that the extreme gamma radiation that we're going to be exposed to is going to cause an evolving of our species. Look, there's things beyond my pay grade. Yahweh bless.